Today's company presentations are brought to you by Red Cloud Financial Services and the team at Red Cloud Vancouver. Red Cloud Financial Services is your preeminent source for mining industry opportunities. The team provides a unique tailored marketing program dedicated to reaching the right people from its mining-focused global network, giving clients access to industry-leading events and conferences, retail and institutional marketing, plus an in-house growth-driven digital agency. Red Cloud Financial Services has access to some of the mining industry's most notable companies and CEOs. Tune in every Thursday at 4:15 p.m. Eastern, 1:15 p.m. Pacific for weekly corporate presentations. For more information, visit redcloudfs.com.
Good morning. Welcome to Digging Deeper. Today, we're speaking with Nicole Brewster, who is the president and CEO, amongst other things, of Renforth Resources. Very interesting story out of Quebec. Great infrastructure, great province to be working out of. And we're talking about like critical battery energy metals, so nickel, but also it's backed by gold. So let's get right into it. It's a real pleasure to have you on. How's your day going?
Thanks so much. Everything's good so far. Thanks for asking, and appreciate the time with you.
Yes, well, we're looking forward to talking about this because nickel often has been forgotten. People always look to lithium, and lithium is always the rage. They're talking about batteries, but now more than ever, nickel has really come to the forefront. And maybe you can kind of give us your kind of macro outlook, and then specifically the project that you have.
For sure. Yeah, nickel's it's not necessarily a forgotten metal, but it does definitely get forgotten that EVs or energy storage is going to place demands on both the nickel and the copper market, just as significant as lithium. Lithium is incredibly prevalent on this planet. It's just there's been no lithium mining to date, but you're going to see them come on stream fast here, and lots of ways to get lithium, lots of places to get lithium. Nickel and copper, the hard rock mining, that's a very different story. The macro I foresee, I mean, we all know what's happening in the world. We've got the demands of energy storage, EV, green energy, but we also have what's happening with Russia and all the sanctions imposed against Russia. Canada, as was observed by the German Chancellor when he visited Mr. Trudeau a couple weeks ago, and brought along was Mercedes-Benz and Volkswagen.
Yes.
They called dibs on Canada's battery metals fundamentally to support their EV growth strategies. But he did observe that Canada is comparable to Russia in terms of our natural resources, with the difference that we have a stable democratic society, unlike Russia. So the
Yes.
Sanctions, their material is off the market, and there's grievous economic harm. Now the population's being mustered into the military. That situation hopefully does not escalate and calms down soon, but the damage to Russia as an economy is going to be numbers of years before that's resolved, which unfortunately creates opportunity for other areas. And then, nickel right now, it's coming largely out of Indonesia. They're using it's HPAL, it's high pressure acid leaching nickel. They're taking class 2 nickel, and they're fundamentally processing it more than once with significant chemical intervention. The scary part of that is they're taking the tailings, they're taking the waste material from that process, they're dumping it in a deep sea trench. The government's position in Indonesia is that they're not allowing that. In the future, the next 2 plants which are being built fully intend to continue to dump offshore. So you have a green industry taking its main metal for energy storage from a source that's dumping it into a deep sea offshore trench, which is okay because we don't know what's at the bottom of the trench.
Yeah.
So, the need for clean sources of these metals, both in terms of how they're produced but also in ESG values, like in taking care of the communities, taking care of the environment. It's real. It's real,
Yeah.
and Canada has a very good reputation. We're good miners. So I think there's going to be significant opportunity in this country to fulfill the metal needs of the energy revolution, in part because we've been deemed a domestic source for the US. And in order to receive tax incentives, I believe it starts at 40% of the materials have to be domestically produced, and then that number goes up. Now, specific to the project, why does all of this have me excited in terms of our setting within those different macro drivers? Well, we're located in the province of Quebec, pretty much in the middle. We're outside the town of Malartic. We're between Rouen and Val d'Or. We're right off of the Trans-Canada Northern Route. We have major regional roads that run through the property. Yep, there you go. The Val d'Or Rouen is to the left or to the west. But there are two major regional roads running through the property along with the power lines that service the two hydroelectric dams to the south. So we've got access to hydroelectric power. 98% of the hydropower in Quebec is hydroelectric. And in fact, I believe the power produced in Quebec, as well as being the lowest cost electricity in Canada, it's also the lowest cost in terms of carbon, or second lowest cost. I could be wrong there, but it's that nature in terms of carbon worldwide. So we'd have very green energy. We've got road access. There is a rail line running along the top of the property. In Rouen, the Horn Smelters, Canada's only copper nickel smelter. It's about an hour away by road. I don't know how far by rail, but so our logistical setting is amazing. And then we've got to talk about just the setting of the mineralization. It's sitting at surface, 20-kilometer band across the center of the property, and then an additional 9 kilometers that we've proven to the north of the property. So, you can see the mineralization there. It's the magnetic anomaly along with the EM targets where we find sulfides whenever we go to an EM target. So, I mean, we've got surface mineralization, which is good. It's amenable to a cheaper open pit mining, and we have the ground necessary to do that sort of mining. But the other cool thing, the gap to the top right of that map, that's not our ground, because that property is 330 square kilometers. But the bit we don't own in the top right is actually the Canadian Malartic mine, which is Canada's largest open pit gold mine.
Yeah.
The open pit's 4 kilometers long. It's 400 meters deep. So they moved half that town to open that open pit. So it's not like we're located in a region very familiar with what we're doing. Every service, every person, everything you could ever need to open a mine is there, and we can drive to the property. So very cool setting. A lot of economic advantage from that setting, as well as environmental advantage. Nobody lives where we are. The First Nation to the north, the community of Pickering, is an Algonquin community outside of the town of Amos. We employ them in terms of services they're able to provide when we need them.
Yep.
So our ESG, all of that's fine. And we're in a very sophisticated location that understands mining and the value to the community. So lots of good things going. We really just have to keep working.
Yeah, I mean, you've hit. I mean, there's so many check marks here. It's pretty impressive. And you were saying before, you're a polymetallic, so nickel is very hot right now. People are paying attention, and it's good, and it's getting like mainstream news play, which is great. But you're not also a victim to your own success. Is that you've got copper. We'll know when further data comes out to what extent. But it's also that you're backed by this gold. I mean, you're literally in between. If people, I have some generalists that watch this, they're not as familiar with mining. I mean, you got Val d'Or, you got Malartic. These are massive gold mines that are backing. So your gold underneath there's a backing of gold to this project, or as a separate project to this company, I should rather say.
Right. The Surimeau property, and it's probably the first map in the presentation you have, but the Surimeau property is sitting in the Pontiac. It's the geological province we're sitting in. Those are sediments, never explored. It shows on the first map dots where, when I acquired this property, I was putting together historic exploration for gold, where they got low-grade gold, but they ignored it. And they got base metals. They didn't care about the base metals. We used to call them base metals. Now we call them battery metals.
Yes.
But all the blue dots on that map are where they were looking for gold. But the reason they were, and we have gold as well, very low grade, don't really worry about it on Surimeau. But the reason they were looking for gold, and the reason why the Pontiac was largely unexplored, like this previous exploration was done in the 1980s and nothing since, was the Cadillac Break indicated on that map, the red dash line. It runs from west of Kirkland Lake in Ontario, several hundred kilometers to just east of Val d'Or in Quebec. That is like a gold mining superhighway. Every
Yeah.
kilometer or so, couple kilometers, there are mines. So we can see the Cadillac, we can see the Malartic mine. You see our Parbec property right next door. It's on strike to Malartic. It's on the Cadillac Break. We've only drilled perhaps our 2020 resource, which is now out of date, in that we've drilled 15,000 meters subsequent to it, and we validated 13,000 historic meters not included in it. The bulk of everything was above a vertical depth of 350 meters. The open pit next door goes deeper than that, and most of the resources on this break are very, very deep. But as you go along the break, where it bends is the old Lapa mine, Agnico Eagle. It's been closed. Then there's the O'Brien, there's the La Ronde. There's all sorts of historic small mines all the way along. But the Cadillac camp was actually one of the most lucrative camps historically in terms of the amount of gold that came out of it. So we're in elephant country for gold mining. And
Yes.
we hold our gold deposit. We were a gold company, and we had the property next door, and I started acquiring right at the end of 2020 when really nobody cared. I started acquiring all these base metal showings, and now people care because, like I said, we used to call them base metals, and I did that because I was frustrated with gold. Gold's emotional.
Yeah.
Retail shareholders react emotionally based on the trading of gold, which is largely artificial anyway, and we're not going down that rabbit hole. But
Yeah. Well,
it's frustrating when you're sitting on a resource, which, despite what the price of gold does, it's US dollars, and it's still economic for Canadian miners. So I was just frustrated. I was like, forget it. I'm going to
yeah.
acquire these base metals. Base metal mines are run by accountants. They're not as sexy, they're not as spectacular, but they're fundamental. They're basic. That's why they're called base metals. Everything we use, we either grow it or we mine it. Most of it's base metals. But now we call base metals battery metals because, again, they're fundamental to the EV revolution. Copper, nickel, you're not going to get away from them. You need nickel to store, you need copper to carry electricity. So I staked all these base metal showings when nobody cared. Now people care, which is wonderful. We have large systems. We've done very little work. Of the 20 kilometers, we've drilled off 2.2 kilometers in 5,400 or so meters of drilling. And I can't remember, I'm going to say we drilled maybe 18 holes. So that's like scratching the surface.
Yes.
Literally.
Yeah.
We're stripping right now. We'll do some channel sampling. Again, we're literally scratching the surface at both Lalonde and Victoria. So we've seen high-grade nickel. We've seen better grades of everything. Right now, we're a large-scale, low-grade nickel sulfide polymetallic. We've got an ultramafic with nickel, cobalt, and PGE elements, and our platinum group elements. And then we have another system which is copper, zinc, silver, and only a whisper of gold right now. But all of this will change as we work more. So I can't tell you definitively what we have, but we have a lot of something.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's in a phenomenal setting.
Yes. I mean, it goes without saying. I mean, not only the province of Quebec, they get it, especially on the critical battery energy story. I'm always, kind of talking about how they get it. I wish the federal government would get on side with how Quebec gets it. They see it. They're like, okay, we get this.
Right.
What's it going to take? Like, what's the next steps for you guys? Is more drilling? I mean, you've done this magnetic as well, like you said, like for 20 kilometers. And that was exciting because, the things are popping out at surface, and you don't see that every day. So I'm taking a big step back here, but you've got surface showings, but also you're getting major anomalies, and they're within 350 meters down or so. Like it's
the 350 meters was the gold. The deepest pierce point on the polymetallics, 180 meters, in fact.
Wow. That's great. Yeah.
It's, again, scratching the surface. What are the next steps, or what should an investor look for, or what be the catalysts? That's the word I was trying to find. That's kind of a two lane highway. the one catalyst always is the bonanza hole, right? The lucky drill hole.
Yeah.
Largely out of our control in that we do place our holes for a reason, but you've seen what a drill hole produces. It's a 2-inch P tube of rock, right?
Yes. Yeah.
I have at home a piece where a 2-inch tube missed a whole bunch of gold. It's just a rock sample I have at home, and it's depressing. But
Yeah.
so the bonanza strike, I'll put in the same bucket as the bonanza hole the idea of, and this is my pet theory, the future of mining is unlikely to come from the retail market in terms of what I see right now. It's unlikely to come from senior mining companies feeding downwards in the food chain, like the big companies getting the medium getting the
Yes.
little.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't see that happening right now either. Everyone
Okay.
is far too risk averse. They want
Yes.
their butt covered right, left, and center, and
Yeah.
there's risk inherent in this business. I
Yes.
do see where we eliminate risk for someone, and that is the OEM. That's the vertical integration. It was the vertical integration of metals, access to metals, which started, if you recall, the Ring of Fire story in Ontario. That was Cliff's Natural Resource wanting vertical integration and security of supply of chromite. That's what started
Okay.
that ball rolling.
Yes.
We're still
Yes.
talking about that ball, and it hasn't even worked out. I think what we're going to see in the battery metal space is the battery producers, the cathode producers, or the auto producers themselves feeding backwards in their food chain to ensure their access to materials, especially as the
Yes.
macro collapses around the world, not just due to Russia falling off losing the plot, but also governments are increasing taxation, they're seizing assets, and
Yeah.
there's a lot of objection amongst local communities about the usage of water by mining operations and the
Yes. As well.
irresponsible
Yeah.
usage of water.
Yeah.
So I think we're going to see, I'm putting the bazooka hole, or the bonanza hole rather, in the same bucket as OEMs vertically integrating. That could change the story drastically. But really, what do I know is going to, because those are all if.
Yeah.
But what do I know is going to happen? I know we're going to keep working. We're in the field right now working. We did some trenching. Funny story. When we first got Victoria, we drilled, we did the first drill program, and it was maybe, I forget, we call it 10 holes across the 2.2 kilometers. And then we went in between two fences of them, and we stripped 275 meters bare so that we could see the rock. We did a bunch of sampling, saw more copper on surface than we had in drill holes. So very interesting stuff. We figured out this summer we screwed up. We only stripped and we only drilled half the mineralization. Because after we flew our EM survey, we could see two parallel horizons of targets. And from the road, which is beside Victoria West, that's how we get there, we see that the mineralization splits and goes back. It splits and goes
Oh, no
back
way. Okay.
all the way across the 6 kilometers. So we drilled in a spot where it split, and we only drilled the southern horizon. We have to look at the northern horizon in Victoria next. Okay, fine, we'll do that. But we learned our lesson. So at Lalonde, which we're stripping right now, and Lalonde's given us some of the best visual mineralization on the properties. It's very exciting. But Lalonde also runs east-west, but instead of stripping east-west, which is what we did at Victoria, and we only stripped half of it, we're doing it across. We did 3 trenches across the mineralization, fully intending that these trenches are much longer than they need to be because we want to start and end at 0.
Yes. Yeah.
It's good scientific practice to
Yes.
start and end at 0 so we can constrain the mineralization. So we're doing that right now. We'll channel sample it. We'll assay it. The assays will take forever and another day to get back
Yes.
to us.
Yeah.
But base metals are visual. We also use handheld X-ray machines in the field so we get an
Yeah.
idea of the grade. But then we're looking towards drilling at Lalonde for the first time and some additional drilling at Victoria at the end of the year. And that's really the story. It's just keep doing the science, putting our heads down, and trying to determine how much mineralization is there and what is the grade of it. We don't know those answers. We know we have it. We're not looking for it.
Yeah.
I tell people we're an exploration company, but we're not exploring. We're defining.
Yes. I mean, in one in a strange way, having such a huge footprint is almost, unless you're given a huge bucket of cash, it's also frustrating because you're like, we don't have a problem with we have 20 kilometers here.
We just need to figure out how to get to a resource. But then
Yes.
again, where do you draw that line, right?
Yeah.
And that's a whole different debate. But it also, like, okay, lithium. There's lithium at the property.
Yes.
There's lithium in Victoria. There's lithium elsewhere on the property.
Yes.
We're not worried about lithium. Why? Because we've got this big gray elephant made of nickel sitting in the middle of the property.
Yes.
Rare earths, same thing.
Yep.
You need a hell of a lot of them, partly because there's no way to process them in this country right now.
Yes.
But we're not going to chase. I'm not going to chase the press releases. I'm not going to call the company. I'm not going to change the name of the company to chase the press releases or change what I talk about to chase press releases. I've told people, yeah, there's lithium, but we're not worried about the lithium.
Yeah.
We've got enough to worry about. We've got 29 kilometers of mineralization, and alone we stop it at 9 kilometers. We know it goes further, but really, come on, 29 kilometers?
Yeah, you don't.
I don't need to add kilometers. It's not the game.
Yeah, you don't need more. But I love this idea, and this is how I'm hoping and envisioning. And once again, it's a hoping and envisioning. It's not a fact. Is some of these companies, like even like an Apple, or I mean, they use batteries. These supply to these big major corporations that
use metal in this sucker.
A lot of metal, a lot of batteries, and they are going, listen, we have so much cash flow. Like even now they're getting pounded on. They have so much cash flow that for them to fund R&D into...
You're telling me Ford, why do you think, okay, let's take your idea and back it up a step. Why do you think the German chancellor brought their two national automakers to this country?
Yeah.
They know they need these things. There's a lot riding on these big companies staying alive. You know, it's not even a rounding error, the amount of money we're talking about.
To them, it's so small to them.
I don't think, and for them, access to the metals de-risks their operation.
Yes.
For a mining company to come in and talk to me about Surimeau, I'm adding risk to their operation. I learned that lesson with Parbec. I marketed Parbec with the new drilling not integrated into the existing resource, and every mining company is like, whoa. And I'm there, entrepreneurial hat on, going, well, wait a minute, you're buying an asset that's based on this. We know there's goodwill, but you've got all this other data you can incorporate and do what you want with it. To me, it was an opportunity. To them, it's risk.
Yeah.
So internally, we're updating Parbec, blah, blah, blah. Take away all the risk. So to a mining company, Surimeau is risk. All they see is, ooh, I can't make the decision. I want to protect my pension.
Yeah.
You know, no, scary. Whereas to a company that needs the metals, they're like, whoa, yeah, the metals are in the ground. I'm not a miner. I don't understand the details and really don't care. But I know the metals are in the ground. So if I can buy them while they're in the ground.
Like how much is it going to cost me? And then we can do it in a non-dilutive way.
Right?
It's just R&D. They spend so much on R&D on things
like how to make a cuter tire or something, or change a door handle, right?
Yeah. and they can flow a level of cash flow in, and once again in a non-dilutive way that would make sense. It's just they seem to be waking up to some degree, but I think they just need to understand mining a little bit more and exactly where do they get this stuff. And also it matters, like you mentioned before, like in Indonesia, it's really going to matter moving forward. Where are you getting this stuff? How are they treating it? How are they mining it? All of that's going to matter.
China is looking the other way environmentally. There's a surprise. Europe doesn't seem to care. I think the North American market's going to demand two things. It's going to demand, despite what I was just at a show and all the battery people were telling me I'm wrong, but I'm sorry. You want me to get rid of my Jeep that burns gas and drive an electric vehicle? I better not need to charge it every 150 kilometers. Because I tell you, I can commute downtown and spend an hour sitting on the Don Valley Parkway not moving, like the bridges in Vancouver. You don't want to watch your charge doing this. So I want a long lifespan battery. I want the better battery, not the cheap iron.
Yes.
Iron, whatever it is, iron phosphate, I think.
Yeah.
I want the nickel battery. And I also want, if I'm going to spend the money to buy a green vehicle, it damn well better be a green vehicle. And
Yes.
greenwashing is a whole different thing. I think the North American regulators and consumers are going to demand that green actually be green.
Yeah.
That's what
Yeah.
took Tesla off most all ESG rankings. Tesla's been removed, and it's because the nickel's being dumped in the offshore trenches.
Yeah.
And the Indonesian government's like, yeah, well, we want that to stop, but where are they going to put it? It's a tiny little island, and they're creating tons of waste.
Yeah. People have had enough of that. Especially when there is other ways of going
There are
about
other
doing
ways of
things.
doing it. There are other
And
ways of doing many things, and they
yeah.
need to be explored. There's other ways of getting lithium. We don't need
Yeah.
to mine hard rock lithium.
Yes. Well,
But
this is the part that I find fascinating too. Not only, the projects, the gold is there, but also just the battery energy side, because that you can take the gold conversation. It can get heated, and people are gold bugs and this and that. But this, just the base metal, critical battery metal stuff. If you want any of this in the future, the demand and supply is so outmatched. If people don't do something, they should have done something 4 years ago. But if they're not doing something today to accelerate this, it's just simply not. This whole dream is not happening. It's not going to happen.
it's a dream. That's the word.
Yeah.
It's a dream. The targets, the ability to meet the minor target, what is it, 2 degree target or what? It's
Yeah.
off the table. We can't do
Yeah.
it.
No.
We can't do it by 2030, 2035. All these governments saying you can't sell, conventional engine.
Yeah.
How? Are we
Yeah.
going to go back to like the Flintstones, stick your feet out the bottom of your car and run along? Like, it's not, we
Yeah.
can't do it.
No.
We can't do it in the current regime. Everything needs to change. Our governments need to think differently about our government as Canadians needs to really think about the fact that we are a resource economy and facilitate
Yes.
the maximizing our resource economy. The investing public, who knows what'll happen. I do think it'll be the consuming public that comes after the base metals.
Yeah.
And there's gonna be a real kind of separating the wheat and the chaff, because you're gonna get the companies that get access to the metals and you're gonna get the companies that don't.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, that's gonna drive price. And it's a price sensitive market for them. So there's a reason Germany came and called dibs on our country,
Yeah.
and our prime minister agreed with them, which is a whole different thing, in that these assets aren't owned by the government. And I'm sure half of them are owned by China already anyway, because they invest. China has been investing in our natural
Yes.
resource companies for years.
Yes.
Our own government doesn't. The Chinese government does.
I know. We were living in a very strange, I bang my head on the table sometimes because I think we're sitting, we're very similar to Australia, and Australia seems to get it. And they're doing very well in their minings right now, and they're flourishing, but yet the populations are very similar types of government and everything, but yet here it's just blinders on, and we've got sitting on assets that we could be helping to revolutionize this whole green shift, and we're not only we're trying, but we're being held back by a lot.
Some of us are trying. I mean,
Yeah.
and I've heard different things. Like, I've heard criticism that mining as an industry doesn't market itself anywhere near as well as our egg board or our milk board do, both of which have like huge marketing machines.
Sure.
I tell people I'm in mining. Well, they look at me and then they go talk to somebody who has a more interesting thing to
Yes.
talk about at parties, right? But it's just, we need to wake up. And it's not just mining, it's water, it's timber, it's,
Yeah.
we are so well endowed in this country. And I'm not convinced we're maximizing that ability, that endowment in a responsible manner. But yeah, there's an opportunity there. And I mean, people perceive it. And I think it's going to be an interesting couple of years, actually.
I think so. I hope so. I mean, people are waking up a little bit, and they're starting to put 2 and 2 together. How is this, like, where do we get energy, and where's this? And if we don't use oil and gas, how does that work? And so people are starting to ask the questions and starting to kind of put 2 and 2 together that, wait a second, something's going on here.
Enough of our media. It's enough in the news, like, our carbon tax we pay. There's enough environmental discussion in the news. I really welcome people getting informed.
Yeah.
Understand how your house is built. How do you stay warm in the winter? Well, how did the energy get to you that keeps you warm? What's in your car? What's in your shoes? There's a reason you'd have to take your shoes off at the airport until they refine their machines. Is because they detect the metal in your shoes. Like, it's everywhere.
It's everywhere, and people are starting to come to terms with that. But this has been fascinating. We have to jump off, but everyone,
It's a pleasure. I love chatting.
This is great, and I love taking different angles as well, because I mean, you've got a massive footprint here.
Huge footprint, huge system. Don't know how much metal's in it yet. There's metal in it.
There's metal, but it's just a matter of doing the work.
Matter of how much. And then we've got the roads and the green power, and we've got the smelter down the road.
It hits every ESG checkmark you want. I mean, like that, the province, the permitting, the First Nations, like all of it's there. And a lot of places don't have that. I mean, right off the bat, and that's a big hurdle. And then the scope of the project is something as well that even if it is low grade, someone goes, well, that's fine. I mean, we can fund this.
I had a guy from BC email me. I've read everything you've got out there. I want to talk to you about our concentration technology. I mean, they have shovels now that can shovel material in a mine and tell you the grade of the material in the shovel.
Yeah.
Because they use the X-ray technology. Technology is changing rapidly.
Yes.
So yeah, low grade. Sure, it's low grade until you maximize the amount you're putting through the system by discarding all the waste before it goes into the plant. Now it's high grade.
Now it's high grade.
It's lots of things to do. Technology is wonderful.
Perfect. Well, thanks so much. This has been a real pleasure. I really enjoyed talking with you.
Thank you. Renforth RFR on the CSE.
Take a look at it, everyone. Thanks so much, and everyone have a good day.